Up next on U.S. Bank Business Watch, presented by the Cincinnati Business Courier, what are the biggest businesses in Cincinnati? We have the stats you need to key into the most important and most influential institutions in our community. Well, he has more Twitter followers than probably anyone in the tri-state. Why the president of UC is all over social media. And a shiny new makeover for a downtown hotel. U.S. Bank Business Watch is next. Good morning. Welcome to U.S. Bank Business Watch. I'm Brian Patrick. On the Business Courier front page centerpiece this week, when it comes to business, bigger is better, or at least more important and influential, especially when measuring the impact on the economic vitality of our community. Courier 250 highlights the biggest organizations in Cincinnati and northern Kentucky. This annual publication is inserted in the Cincinnati Business Courier this week. It is a guide to the region's public companies, the largest private companies, the largest nonprofits, and the national companies that employ the most workers in our region. The combined 2012 revenue of all Cincinnati-based organizations featured in the publication is $329 billion. Total employment for 2013, 1.2 million people. To talk about Courier 250, what's in it, why it's important to you, and how you can use it, Business Courier editor Rob Dahmeyer joins Business Watch Kelly Leon, our producer, in the studio. Rob and Kelly?
Thank you, Brian. Rob, this is a massive undertaking.
It is.
For the Courier. You're exhausted.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Let's start with why you guys do it each year and how we, as consumers of the Business Courier, should use it.
We do it because a big chunk of Cincinnati's economy is made up of private companies, and private companies are private. And they're not out there, like public companies have to share every bit of financial information. They have to really disclose everything because they're owned by the public, by shareholders. Well, private companies are usually owned by, maybe it's one person or a family or a couple of people, and they're typically, especially in a town like Cincinnati, pretty quiet. But there's a ton of value we see in giving our readers the ability to get a bunch of information about these companies, who's running them, how big they are, what kind of markets they're trying to get into. But it's hard, and we have to call every single one of these companies, some of them many, many times. A lot of them hang up on us. And so, but that, you know, that makes it valuable when you can get that. So, you know, Lisa Benson, our managing editor, she really is the one who champions this, and she's probably into a couple bottles of vodka now after she's done with this.
Not Lisa. No,
probably not Lisa. Actually, wine.
Well, maybe. The private companies in particular, yeah, like as you said, that's tough to get. Once we have this beautiful document, why should I keep this in my office, and how should I use it? How should I reference it?
Well, we feel like this has a year-long shelf life until we do the next one. And it's because these are snapshots in time, but they do give a lot of archival detail. I mean, we have, for each of these private companies, it's who's running them, how much, what's their revenue, where they are, what markets they're trying to get into. And it really just gives you a great picture for the companies that you should know. I mean, for instance, the biggest private company in town is a $1.6 billion company, Advanced Pierre, which is up north of 275 near Tri-County. They do frozen foods. And on down the list, we've got 4 private companies in town that have revenue of over $1 billion, and a lot of people don't know that.
Any big surprises that you can share with us that came out of this?
The big surprises are how good the private companies, specifically, how well they've been able to keep up through the recession. You know, the recession is, I guess, technically over, but most companies would say it's not, but how well they've held up. So Advanced Pierre's on the top, but also companies like United Dairy Farmers. They're approaching $1 billion in revenue. Castellini companies, Bob Castellini, the owner of the Reds, has an enormous company that has not just fruits and vegetables, but they have transportation, etc. Total Quality Logistics is an over $1 billion company. They're out in on the east side of town, and they do logistics work. And on down the line, I mean, we do 150 private companies. The smallest one on our list is about $60 million.
Okay, $60 million. Wow, great. Get it, get a copy of it, keep it on your desk. Brian, back to you.
Kelly, thank you. Rob's back later with career expert Julie Balke. The University of Cincinnati is the second largest employer in Cincinnati, and President Santa Ono has been nominated for a prestigious award. The award, though, has nothing to do with academics, or does it? The 28th president of UC is an avid user of the social media site Twitter with more than 18,000 followers and just as many tweets. He was nominated for a Shorty Award for excellence in social media.
I just find it a great way to communicate. I think one of the major responsibilities of any CEO, whether or not that person is for a company or a university, is to connect with various stakeholders. We have 270,000 alumni, 42,000 students, 16,000 employees, and nearly 6,000 faculty members. So it's really difficult to communicate with everyone. They're scattered around the globe. So Twitter is one way that you can communicate with tens of thousands of people, sometimes even several 100,000 people if they're retweeted simultaneously.
And you got to love his bow tie. His Twitter handle is @PresOno if you want to follow him. You can also read more about Ono and the challenges facing large universities in this week's print edition of the Business Courier. Work on the Martin Luther King interchange off I-71 near UC may be fast-tracked. The project would begin next year under a funding recommendation announced by the State Department of Transportation. Ohio Governor John Kasich recommended that the state spend about $107 million on the interchange. He credited his decision to sell bonds backed by revenue from the Ohio Turnpike in northern Ohio with freeing up money to do this and other projects sooner than expected. Otherwise, work on the interchange probably would not have started until 2027. Another project that was fast-tracked was reconstruction and widening of I-75 from Hopple Street to Mitchell Avenue. One of Cincinnati's most famous restaurant chains was recognized by Nation's Restaurant News for its growth last year. La Rosa's was ranked number 198 out of 200 national restaurant chains. With $138 million in sales, La Rosa's is listed among the top 10 newcomers to that list. Nation's Restaurant News has been serving the food service industry since 1967. A new local business is building its foundation on another Cincinnati institution, baseball. Blue Seat is a mobile software company focused on building high-quality apps for baseball fans, and we have a lot of them. It started last year with Cincy Lineup, an app that delivers the Reds' starting lineup to your iPhone as soon as it's posted in the clubhouse.
Turned into an exploration of how can we use phones and tablets to engage deeper with the baseball game. This year, I'd like to introduce a new app called Scorecard. Cincy Lineup is a preview of the day's game. Scorecard is an interactive scorekeeping app that you can use during the game.
You can see this one coming. Hendricks says keeping score is a baseball tradition, and that's becoming a dying art. By celebrating that tradition and rethinking it for the iPad, he hopes the experience will have an appeal to future generations. Visiting Reds fans have a shiny new Hyatt to stay in downtown. The $23 million renovation of the 491-room downtown Hyatt Regency is just about complete.
It was a full top-to-bottom renovation, everything from the guest rooms to the lobby to all of our meeting space, all of our elevators, including our front drive as well.
That front drive will be completed in mid-August. The Hyatt Regency Cincinnati is the fourth largest hotel in our region. To view a slideshow of the renovation, you can visit our website. Well, Northern Kentucky University was the place to be last week for young professionals who want to be part of the Business Courier's 40 Under 40 networking group. About 100 nominees gathered for the event at the James and Rachel Vitruba Student Union. The retreat is a chance for the region's up-and-coming YPs to meet and exchange ideas.
I just think it's a great opportunity to meet other young people in the city doing great things, and also hopefully put myself in a place where I can then give back to others.
Nominees heard from past winners, and a panel discussion was headed by Courier editor Rob Dahlmeyer, covering topics like mentoring, balancing work and life, and how the panelists achieve success. Look for an announcement of the 2013 40 Under 40 class in the weeks ahead. So our partnership with the Health Foundation of Greater Cincinnati continues this week. This question to Kate Keller, Vice President for Policy and External Relations. Kate, what insurance obligations will employers of more than 50 full-time employees have in 2014?
The Obama administration recently announced they will allow businesses with more than 50 full-time employees another year before requiring them to provide insurance. Now businesses have until 2015 to provide insurance for their employees before they will be taxed $2,000 for each employee after the first 30. You can find more information or ask questions about how healthcare reform will affect your business at reform.healthfoundation.org.
All right, thanks, Kate. We appreciate you and the Health Foundation. Up next on U.S. Bank Business Watch, a downtown Cincinnati building has a new owner. And we all know it's expensive to fly out of CVG, but is it getting any better? We have new information for you. Here's some news you may have missed if you're not reading the Business Courier online every day. Convergys has sold its downtown Cincinnati 4th Street headquarters, Atrium 1, to Smith Hallman Partners for $43.4 million. Convergys will remain in the building on a long-term lease. The new owners bought Atrium 1 for about $20 million less than what Convergys paid for the building in 2003. Procter & Gamble is teaming up with women's professional basketball. The deal with the Women's National Basketball Association includes CoverGirl Cosmetics, Secret Deodorant, and Tampax feminine hygiene products. The campaign will be carried out through P&G's My Black is Beautiful Imagine a Future program, which provides girls with tools and resources such as scholarships. The average price of a flight from Cincinnati Northern Kentucky International Airport, CVG, dropped 2.4% in the first quarter of 2013 compared to the same period in 2012, according to the new statistics. That's good news. The bad news is CVG still had the second highest fares in the nation. The average ticket in which the passenger's flight originated from CVG was $519. Cincinnati's neighborhoods have a new way for residents to connect and also allow the city to distribute key information about crime and public services. Mayor Mark Mallory and City Manager Milton Dehoney announced last week that the city would participate in Nextdoor.com, a private online social network that is now in more than 100 cities and 16,000 neighborhoods across the country. More than 2,000 Cincinnati residents are already signed up for the service. There is no advertising on the site right now because Nextdoor is a well-funded startup. Well, in this morning's U.S. Bank Economic 360, the troubling story unfolding in Detroit. As you know by now, Detroit recently became the largest American city ever to file for bankruptcy, which could lead to layoffs for municipal workers and scaling back basic services like trash collection. Detroit's been declining for decades as the city saw residents and tax dollars head to the suburbs. U.S. Bank Vice President and Senior Portfolio Manager Mike Denneman joins me now with more on this unfolding story. Good to have you with us, Mike.
Good morning, Brian.
What does the bankruptcy for Detroit mean for investors?
Well, most immediately what it means is that if you've invested in bonds of Detroit, if you own the municipal securities that they've issued, you're going to have some trouble. You can essentially think of these bonds like a bank loan. So for instance, if the city wants to build a bridge or improve the sewer line, they will sell these bonds on the open market and then take the money they receive from investors to complete that project. In return, they pay interest periodically to the investors, and then at some predetermined date in the future, they return the original capital. So both sides win in that scenario. The investors like the cash flow that they get from the interest, which is oftentimes tax-free, and the city, of course, gets the funding to fund their operations. Unfortunately, in this bankruptcy, what Detroit is saying is that we don't have the funds to make the interest payments, let alone return your original capital. So if you have the bonds that were issued by Detroit, you're more than likely going to lose your entire investment.
Are there a lot of those bonds out there?
There are, unfortunately.
Oh, man. So are we seeing more of this kind of thing around the country?
We really are, unfortunately. Certainly, Detroit, the largest bankruptcy, grabs a lot of headlines. But we are seeing more and more cities and counties and even states that are in very precarious financial situations. So, you know, Stockton, California, a great recent example of a large city, not as big as Detroit, but one that declared bankruptcy. And unfortunately, I think this is something that we're going to see escalate in the coming years. So Many people think of bonds as safe investments, stable investments, certainly less risky than the stock market. But as these bankruptcies show, that isn't always the case.
So when you're looking at municipal bonds, you can't just automatically think this is a good investment. How can investors protect their investment?
Sure. Well, while there are a growing list of cities and states that are having dire financial situations, there are many, many more that are on a firm financial footing. So sticking with those cities, counties, states that have solid balance sheets, solid cash flow, that's the key to a conservative investment. Probably the easiest way to discern what's safe and what's risky is to look at the credit rating of a bond. So these are grades, if you will, that are issued by companies like Standard & Poor's or Moody's, where they go in and they actually look at the balance sheet, they look at the cash flow, and forward-looking project if this is a situation where you're going to get your money back or one where you might have some trouble. So we caution investors to stick with the highest quality, stick with those high letter grades. It's not foolproof, as we saw in the financial crisis, but those companies have really tightened up their methodology that they've used, so you can rely a little bit more on those grades, but it's a great place to start when looking for a safe investment.
All right, we rely on guys like you for your expertise. Thank you, Mike. We appreciate you and U.S. Bank.
Thank you, Brian.
Still to come on U.S. Bank Business Watch this morning, gunning for that promotion, some advice for moving ahead, and congratulations to Samir Kulkarni, Vice President of Operations at Solica Construction, another of our 40 Under 40 honorees. Solica was also recognized as a Courier Fast 55 winner in 2012. Starting a construction business amid a recession is the riskiest thing Kulkarni says he's ever done. In this morning's Business Insight, we talk a lot and hear a lot about finding and keeping a job. What about taking that next step in your career? Career expert Julie Balke is with us this morning to talk about positioning yourself for and getting a promotion. Julie joins Business Courier editor Rob Dahlmeyer in the studio with some tips. Julie and Rob?
Brian, thanks. Julie, thanks for being here again.
Sure.
So we're going to talk to something near and dear to my heart, which is getting a promotion. And it's near and dear because I haven't had a promotion in 16 years. So
that's so sad.
It's very sad. But what you have 4 tips, really, that I think are really important for people to keep in mind when they're trying to climb the ladder. We've actually got some graphics we can show. But the first one, you talk about making sure promotion is even really what you want.
Yeah. Before you go for something, you need to figure out what exactly you're looking for. Sometimes people say, I really want a promotion, I really need a promotion, but what they're really saying is, I'm bored, I need something new and different to do, I'm not being paid enough, and they just lump it all under promotion. So really understand what it is you're looking for before you go knock on the boss's door and bang on the desk and say, promote me. So what is it that's going to make you happy?
So to stay with the first one a little bit more, you said that men typically have maybe this problem a little bit more than women do, where it's sort of they're driving a car real fast, but they don't exactly know why.
Well, yeah, and a lot of men generally think that it's about ascending at all times. But when you think more broadly, sometimes it's not necessarily about the next rung on the ladder. It's about expanding your skills and your knowledge and your expertise, maybe in a lateral way, to better prepare you for that next move. And sometimes we get to a rung on the ladder and we realize we're really pretty happy there. And instead of going for the next thing, we found the place that we are going to be happiest and most successful, but we want to round out or fill in our toolkit so we're more valuable, more broadly capable.
When you talk about rounding out, talk about advisors, or the importance of having people that you can go to help.
Yeah, you hear the term mentor, advisor, board of advisors, there's a lot of them, and I don't think you should just have just one, because not everybody is able to advise you equally on everything that you need. And so when you have those people around you who understand what your goals are and what your objectives are in your career and what's important to you, then they have a context in which to advise you. So that group may change and should change, frankly, as you move through your career. Because your goals, you change, your goals change, your interests change, and so the right mentoring group around you should change as well.
The third one is, I think, really great because it's something I see a lot when I'm talking to people that work for me, is the idea of having a business case for getting a promotion, which is something I can just tell you that just rarely happens, at least in my world.
Yeah. A lot of times people think, well, I've been in this job for 3 years. Therefore, I deserve more of something. And the world just isn't like that anymore, if it ever was. And so it's not necessarily about time and job. It's about what have you contributed, what have you made better, what have you done? And so if you go to someone who's responsible for making those decisions, you have to go in there like you are in front of a customer. You're making a business case. I need more, I want more, it's been too long, is really not very compelling. And so you have to approach this as if you are making a proposal, selling something, selling an idea. You are the product.
And the fourth one is taking a long-term view. Explain a little bit about that.
Yeah. You know, it's really easy, especially when we get early in our career, and we're early in our careers, to think just in terms of, you know, I just need to get to that next step. I just need to get that next step. It is so valuable to step back and say, what is 5 years from now going to look like for me? How old will my kids be? Might I have kids all of a sudden? Is it 10 years or 15 years? What is your long-term view? And for each of it's different. And then when you start and figure out what does happiness look like for you, or what it might look like for you in 5 to 10 years, then you can easily back up and figure out what do you need to get there. So sometimes it's not about getting that promotion today. It's about what is the longer-term view of your career and how might you create a path to get there.
Great. Well, I think really the big takeaway for me on all this is you do have to try to separate emotion from this process, specifically when it comes to the business case. But Julie, thank you so much for being here today. And obviously, if you'd like to get more information, here's Julie's information, and I'm sure she'll be happy to help you if you have some questions about how to get promoted. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Brian, back to you.
All right, Rob and Julie, thank you. And thank you for joining us this morning for U.S. Bank Business Watch. We'll be back next Sunday and every Sunday morning at 6:30 here on Local 12, 10 a.m. on the CW. For more business news all week long, visit the Business Courier online and sign up for our daily emails. The Business Courier address is cincinnatibusinesscourier.com. We appreciate you joining us this morning for U.S. Bank Business Watch, presented by the Cincinnati Business Courier. For all of us here at U.S. Bank Business Watch, I'm Brian Patrick. Have a great Sunday and a good week.